hearing to start off with. Everybody had a kind of chance to look at this, look at the operating budget, so look at what we have. We're gonna go at it one at a time. In the first meeting, I wanted to say a few things and kind of maybe clear up some questions as to why we're doing what we're doing. So I'm gonna do that again at the beginning of this meeting, because I can see there's a lot of people here that weren't here the last time. And, a little repetition is not hurt anybody. But what we're saying about this is a fair and responsible budget we are proposing. This isn't about high appropriations or low appropriations. It's about raising the amount of money we need to fiscally operate our departments to meet our essential needs. And obviously, the cost of living and worldwide inflation means necessities just cost more. Everything costs more. You understand that. But one of the things we want to stress is our most important assets are our employees. And they're dedicated, they work hard, they work extra, and we're fortunate they work for us. And we want to make sure that our employees are fairly compensated. I got to go back to last year for a second, as we did an analysis of wage comparison to other municipalities across the state. And after the analysis, the selectmen recommended raises for each and every employee, bringing the compensation up to standard, making it fair, but also to keep our employees as competition for skilled labor has intensified. And all our people are skilled. It's not easy to find. They don't grow on trees. It's the important work that they do. And this past year, the cost of living adjustment, COLA, was pegged at 8.7%. Last year, we approved wage increases to a fair level based on statewide standards. The inflation has eroded those earnings of our employees. So therefore, the selectmen unanimously proposed an 8.7% increase cost of living adjustment, bringing our employee wages back to a fair and competitive level where we thought they were last year, except that they lost about 8.7 based on COLA. So I just wanted to open up with that as we get into the budget. All right, the first item, you can see is selectmen. Wages for selectmen, you can see that the budget was $27,000, actual $27,767 in 2022, and we're posing $29,271. Elected office officials, selectmen's expenses, treasurer's expenses. Are there any questions? Okay. Town clerk. All right, you can see the budget was $85,967. The proposed budget is $94,693. There's an increase of 8.38%, or $7,321. That's for the town clerk, tax collector, and deputy wages expenses, elections, and registration expenses. And there again, the COLA increase is part of that, and that's why you're seeing that increase. All right. Financial administration, 186,331. Actual was 177,604. That was in 2022. This year it's 208,288. It's 11.78% increase, or 21,957, almost 12,000. And you can see, again, wages are part of that, but it's also operating expenses, town office building expenses, professional fees, all of those things. Just about everything has gone up, as it has for all of us, no matter what we do in our own homes. And that's where we landed on this. So, any more? Anything? Okay. Assessing. Malcolm.
Jason Paul.
Malcolm is his father. I can't remember him. All right, sorry. Jason. Okay, Jason. He's done a terrific job for us. I think it keeps us going, little by little each year, instead of, I think what happened in Bartlett is they just doubled their in 1 year the assessments of everybody, things like that. But anyways, we're asking for the same amount that we've always asked, $44,000 for that. Okay. Legal expenses. There's always something coming up, but the budget was 35. We actually only used 18,360, but we're asking again to bring it back up to 35,000, to bring it to 35,000. We didn't spend that much, but we might anticipate that there may be some things that we would need this, so it's probably best to keep it at that level. Any questions? Comments? Okay. Personnel administration. Start off at The budget was 453,134 actual, 426,782 for 2022. We're bringing it to 508, which is a 12.16% increase. Health insurance costs are up a little bit. New Hampshire retirement system are up, and FICA and Medicare are also up, and that's why that part of the budget is up, but that's how we work around here. So again, any questions?
Actually, the health insurance per employee went down, but we have more employees covered this year, so I just wanted to make sure that's noted. And also the New Hampshire retirement is dictated by what we have to contribute based on wages.
Right. We're having more wages, we're gonna have, okay.
We actually, the second half of the year, the 6 months, is actually down for that as well.
Right.
Good.
Maybe.
Planning and zoning boards. We had budgeted 5,500.
We put in for the town capital improvement plan.
Okay.
additional.
All right, so, all right,
Dollars there.
planning board expenses, zoning board expenses, so, there you are, we're asking for $11,000. No? Anybody? Any questions?
Joyce?
I just wondered
Okay.
why it's 11,000 rather than the previous.
And we added the.
Say that again, your
She wants to
question?
know why.
Your budget
It was
is
the capital improvement.
11,000.
We added money into for the planning board because they're gonna be
Oh, the
doing a
capital
capital
improvement.
improvement plan in case they wanted to use like New Hampshire, North Country Council or any outside services to help.
Okay.
General government parks and buildings. Actual was 37,765, we're bringing that to 43,500. It's a bit of an increase. It's, well, you can see it speaks for itself. Town hall, historical society expenses, old library, town grounds and maintenance, and town electrical expenses. And that seems to be the big one there. Now, what is that? I have to ask myself. The electrical expenses, that's just what we use. for
That, so,
lights and
yeah,
all-
we combined it, so it's no longer by department, but it's all
Okay.
town electrical. And I just want to note for Willis in there that it's no longer the old town hall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very
I
much.
know, right?
Still an old town hall, right?
Not on paper.
Till we build a new one.
It's the town hall that's built. Right? But as has been said many times, it's the only town hall.
Should I put that instead, the only thing?
Well, that's what, again, my old buddy Oliver, when Ray Abbott used to say that, it's the only, anyway.
I just a comment on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how many folks have been in that recently, but it's really exquisite. The amount
What
of
they've
art
done.
that's in
Oh, yeah.
there. There's paintings in there, if you see them, you'll never forget them.
No.
Yeah, Warren Shoemaker did a wonderful job since he took over as the Historical Society. And now Ann Pillion has just taken up the,
Yep.
the gauntlet, so that's good. Cemeteries, 11,663 was actual. Proposed budget, 12,000, 7.14% increase. Any questions about that? All right, insurance. We have 61,808, 61,808. Proposed budget, 78,123, 26.4, 40% increase.
There's
But the
a
notes-
great explanation underneath that is because we had a payment holiday, premium holiday in the previous budget year, so it looks like a 26.4% increase, but Julie did a good job of explaining it, so if anybody reads that and has questions, definitely. we
I can read it for you,
elaborate.
but everybody can read it if you'd like. I mean, it's, you know. Okay, I mean, it's all there for you. Building inspection, Mr. Kevin Bennett, okay. Actual budget of 59,000, 57,080. Proposed budget of 68,350, a 15.85% increase. Again, part of that will be wages. Expenses staying the same. Vehicle fuel and maintenance, well, you can always expect that that's gonna go up. And septic system design review, basically flat. The 8.7 COLA is in there. And as I say, the expenses for fuel repairs, of building inspection vehicle, the former PD cruiser that that Kevin now tools around town in. He's got it all set up and ready to go, saving his own car.
Where'd you get the blue lights, Kevin?
Turn them on.
Very nice of
You
you.
don't have to take them off, just don't turn them on.
Yeah, is that right? All right, police department budget, 333,000, proposed 379,000, which is a 13.82% increase. Police wages, again, the increase that we want, that we're proposing is in there. Fuel speaks for itself. I think we all know we're paying more for fuel. And if you look at each one of these itemized, you'll see that it's a justified amount that we have here. And a special duty is offset in revenue, so we're in good shape there, I think. Any questions? Anything about the police department? Is there anything you want to say, Chief Rowley, about the police department?
One thing I'd like to point out, for a point of clarification, is the report indicates that actual expenditures were $333,484 against a budgeted $333,001. Actual expenditures were $332,940. The special details are listed. The special details are on an offset. We budget $100 to keep the line open, but when an officer works a special detail, which is like the ski clubs hire us once or twice a year, Black Mountain does sometimes, we bill them a certain rate for the officer and the police car, and we actually receive more money than the officer receives in special duty. So although it's listed as an expense, it is actually a revenue line. There's just no other way to list it. And so therefore the budget was actually under budget. I think it's $140 something, $159. As far as adjustments to these new adjustments, these are slightly different numbers than the last budget hearing we had, or what a difference 2 weeks makes. We've had a resignation. If people were waiting to see those things on Facebook or e-news, as an operational standard, I don't publicize reductions in staff. I only publicize additions, because reductions in staff, the public knowledge of reductions in staff could lend itself to a reduction in public safety, because people might think there's less people working, when there will be actually less people working, but we don't necessarily need to broadcast that. So Sergeant Boopy, my staff sergeant, a longtime friend and longtime co-worker, has resigned. He is going to reduce himself to real substantial part-time and work part-time for the town of Conway, where he lives. And I think he's kind of like nipping it down to kind of working his way towards the pasture, so to speak. So that's a substantial void. It's a substantial void by talent. It's a substantial void by labor. I want to point out that because of Nathan's unique position, he and I were hired under a set of circumstances that allowed previously retired police officers to come back into the service and work up to 1,664 hours a year. That law has changed, and we're kind of the last of the old plan. The substantial benefit, in addition to knowledge and experience, is that while he was working, you didn't have to pay 33% of his wage towards retirement. The town of Jackson has enjoyed $120,000 of savings in the 6 years that he's worked here, by virtue of the fact that you didn't have to pay retirement, because you don't pay into retirement while you're collecting, and you have a limited number of hours. So because of that, we had to up armor. You don't see this in the police budget, but you see it collaterally in the finances. We had to up armor the retirement cost, because no one else exists like that. You can't hire somebody to work 32 hours anymore. So we'll be looking to hire a full-time person. Along with that comes the full-time cost. We've budgeted for a proportional health insurance. We've budgeted for proportional retirement, because it will take us a couple of months to recruit and recoup exit costs for paid out earned time for Sergeant Boothby. Well deserved, of course. And that brings me to the discussion of staffing. We currently now have 3 officers, myself, Ryan McDonald, and Marty Borg. I want to talk briefly, and I don't want to belabor the point because there's no question on the floor. But I think it's important to look at staffing. The first question I was asked when I came here was asked by Sarah Clemens, and she said, is 2 enough? I think 2 is enough because we've got a lot of help from the Sheriff's Department and State Police. A lot has changed over the 6 years that I have been here. Some by cultural dynamics of the labor pool, some by the pandemic, some by market forces. When I first came here, State Police had 24-hour coverage, and because we were within Troopy's jurisdiction, if we had an after-hours call, they would help out. Oftentimes I would find a trooper when I come in at 7 and he's coming from an alarm, and it was great. It was great. It was like the good old days. Those good old days are long gone. State Police had 24-hour coverage. They rolled it back to 4 a.m. because of staffing shortages. Then they rolled it back to 2 a.m. They currently roll it back to 11 p.m. The Sheriff's Department has never worked longer than 11 p.m. But they would help out if we had any kind of schedule gap. When Ryan and I were the only 2 here, we would have substantial schedule gaps, and they would send a deputy during duty times. So those are, the Sheriff's Department is also suffering labor shortages, like most employers, but also significantly in law enforcement. So nobody works past 11. So we are singularly responsible for police coverage in the town of Jackson. As I had said 6 years ago, that the primary responsibility of the Jackson Police Department is the town of Jackson. It's not State Police's priority, it's not the Sheriff's Department's priority, and those things are subject to change without notice, and that has occurred. So I'd like to talk briefly on what drives staffing, because I said we currently have myself, Ryan, and Marty. Generally, if this was a manufacturing function, what would drive staffing is production demands as well as production goals, but we don't make things, we don't make widgets. We are best acquainted with a service industry. We provide public service. The things that drive staffing in public service, and if any of you were business leaders or managers, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. The things that drive staffing in a service industry or service-related industry are quality of the service, the quality you want to provide, the complexity of the service, how difficult is it, how specialized do the people have to be to provide it. For instance, there's probably a labor pool greater for, say, grocery baggers in the valley than there would be for brain surgeons. One is required to have special training, one is not. Also, the other 2 key features are demand. What is the level of demand for the service? And that is directly and intimately entangled with capacity. What is the capacity of a person or a machine or a combination of those 2 things to provide that service? So what drives staffing for the town of Jackson in general is those four features: quality, complexity, the demand, as well as capacity. I will tell you what doesn't drive staffing, and what doesn't drive staffing is what we all used to do, no matter what the industry is, unless 2 features remained as an absolute constant, and that is the rate of demand as well as the rate of capacity. So if you had the same demand and the exact same capacity as you did 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have to change anything. Nobody has to speculate on the demand on the police department compared to 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ago. It's all in print. We had over 3,000 calls for service last year. We had 3 felony arrests. I don't want to belabor the severity, the complexity, and the serious nature of the things that we dealt with last year. But I would not want it on my conscience if I was the one that had to tell some family, sorry, we weren't working that day. I don't want to be that guy. I never have been that guy. So those are the things that we deal with. Demand increases. Capacity is, I don't want to say it's limitless, but it is limited by a person's ability to work a certain number of hours. So let's talk about staffing hours. In Jackson, what as a community we have decided, and I as a chief endorse, is that the best level of staffing we can have is 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. From whether it's 7 in the morning till 11 at night, or 6 in the morning till 10 or 8 till midnight, however you want to cut it, 16 hours a day is pretty good coverage for a town this size with these demands. The overnight hours are covered by call, by a Jackson officer, but call has a cost. It's a fixed cost. It's a stipend, an in-kind stipend, just like the highway department gets, just like a power line guy gets, or gal, for the inconvenience of having to be ready and able and capable to respond at a moment's notice. So 16 hours a day. So how many people do you need for 16 hours a day? Well, if you were a literal person, you'd pull out a calculator and you'd go, oh, 3, and you got 3. You're good to go, chief, carry on. Well, that is true, theoretically, provided no one ever gets sick, provided no one ever takes a vacation, provided no one ever has to go to court. Now, court's a double whammy because I'm the prosecutor. So unless I'm the prosecutor and the witness, when we have to go to court, you lose by 2, not a value of 1. As well as training. We have required training as well as I like to do enhanced training because I think enhanced training is cheap insurance and a benefit to the department as well as the officer, and it keeps them motivated. So when you back all of those things out, 3 people can theoretically cover 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I know that for a fact because I did a schedule starting Thursday that'll do just that. But Saturday, Ryan has a funeral. And Marty has a personal time off day. So if I don't come in Saturday and work, there'd be nobody here. Because those are the features that you have to deal with in the real world. So when you have that theoretical coverage of 3 people, you have to back out all of that available time. So you're talking about 15 weeks, probably about 15 weeks of PTO. You could back out maybe 1 or 2 court appearances a month. So that's by hours. You got to back out sickness. I'd like to think that one takeaway from the pandemic is that if you have a thin bench, you can have no bench real quick. And we have a very thin bench. I like being efficient, but we have a thin bench. Injuries the same way. Somebody can get hurt, somebody gets sick, somebody can get hurt on the job, and you're down. So you back all that out, and you back out training. We have at least 2, 4, 6, at least another 2 weeks of training mandatory that backs out. So there's 15, 16, 17, maybe some court. Now you're at 20 weeks, and then and mandatory meetings. Because I would be an integral part of the patrol force, because now I'm going to be the day shift officer. Mandatory meetings. I can't be at a meeting and be out on patrol preventing crime. So when I'm in a mandatory meeting or some other professional commitment, that's a blackout period. You don't have somebody patrolling the streets available to respond to your needs. So with 3, you lose 22 weeks of labor in a given year. 22 weeks of labor is 5 months and a half. So that's what you have for coverage currently right now. So if somebody said, oh, 3, you're full staffed. Yeah, if you had a 6.5 month year. I don't know if that's the metric system or not, but ours is 12 months. So 4, I can get by with 4 because I move people around much to their consternation. But I can get by with 4. But you know, you can think about today, or you can think about tomorrow, or you can think about next week, or you can think about next month, or next year, or 2 years, or 5 years down the road. You need 4 today. You're going to need 5 pretty soon, because time off alone is going to start to erode that. And then transitions. This may come as happy news to some, not so happy news to others, but I'm not here forever. So there's going to have to be a transition where the department moves from the current administration and the current staffing to further. I also want to point out, this is how fast you lose help in police work right now. And you lose them for a lot of reasons. They get hurt, they get spooked, they get tired of it, they get a better offer. We're talking about wage scale. I think it's Julie and I, when we first started discussing wage, I was like, that doesn't make sense, it's too much. And we started crunching the numbers, and I crunched the numbers, and it makes us marginally competitive in Carroll County. Marginally competitive in police work means you're losing. You can't recruit and you can't retain, and then it's just a war of attrition. And every time you lose somebody, you have an increased division of labor, meaning the people remaining have to do more, which means they get more frustrated. And in a competitive market, it makes them easier to leave. Probably nobody would take me, but there's a couple other guys that they would take pretty quick. So I think that the money that I built in to recruit someone and hire them is money well spent, in my opinion. It's your money. It's your money. Ultimately, the town will be policed to the capacity of the budget and my ingenuity and the drive of the capacity of the officers, like I said, capacity. However, the chief complaint when I got here was, we want a Jackson officer showing up when we call for help. We solved that problem. I don't think we want to go back to that problem.
Can you swear us all in? Give us
16 weeks at the academy, and I'll be happy to. We're taking applications.
Chief, you mentioned 16 hours of coverage a day, is that what you're planning?
Yes, we actually had 17 when Gary Sherry worked 1 day a week. It allowed us to move some shifts around. We had 17, but we lost him a couple of months ago to semi-retirement, and now we're losing Nathan. So 16 is as good as it's going to get.
Does it help your planning much if you reduced it to 12 hours?
No. No, because there's 7 days in a week, so what would I do with you'd have to pay somebody 40 hours a week for reduced hours?
I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Chris, just a quick question, that you went through a whole bunch of numbers, but, and you're talking about recruiting, so are you recruiting to 5 or you?
No,
The only. 4.5.
Well, we have money in the budget for part-timers, for a part-timer, for 1 shift a week. We have, at the part-timer rate, we have money in the budget to backfill a sergeant if I found one. I don't think I'm going to find one because we're not competitive with sergeants in Carroll County. Sergeants in Conway, I couldn't steal one because they'd have to take a $25,000 cut pay. So that's going to be tough. The budget is really, that line item, the missing man line item is set up for a maximum grab, but I don't really think that's going to happen. And so it gives me some flexibility to recruit because if somebody was certified and they come here, I have some margin from entry-level person, short of a full sergeant. So I see it somewhere in there, but if I budget for an entry-level patrol officer and I find somebody who's ready to be a second in command, I'm short. So it's maximum. Same with insurance. I budgeted for 8 months of family plan. If it's a new hire, they often show up single and have a single plan. But you can't really spend insurance money somewhere else, so it's a safe bet. It's just dry dock money. So no, it's not budgeted for 5. I'm telling the body here that if you think 3's enough, you're delusional. 4, we can get by. You've got to start thinking about the future because of attrition. It takes a long time to recruit someone, train them, and deploy them. If you recruit somebody who's not trained, you lose about 5 months of labor in a given year, just because the law doesn't allow you to work them singularly. They have to be directly supervised. If you recruit somebody that's certified, it's a much faster process, but it's not instantaneous. So it takes a long time. It's not a plug and play. A lot of certified officers, it's not a lot of certified officers floating around not doing that job. So why would they come here? That's what you have to start working on. And one of the things that helps is the division of labor. My officers and myself, we work a solo patrol. You are here by yourself. Whatever you encounter, you're handling by yourself. And the surrounding towns are national forest. National Forest doesn't have police officers coming to help you. There is certainly safety in numbers, so you got to have a person who's comfortable doing it by themselves, willing to take that risk. Some are not. The workplace is changing.
Chief, I have a quick question. Are you going to reduce the budget for dog biscuits for Nate leaving?
I hope not.
No.
That would be an example of demand and capacity.
Thank
Pick all of
you.
those up.
It's touched by my house.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I see you believe, no? Okay. All right, well, thanks, Chief, for that presentation.
Thank you.
Consumables.
All right, ambulance, or chairman of the ambulance squad is right here, and she can explain why we've gone up to where we are.
We did have 2 meetings to go over the budget for the ambulance, and I just want to point out that we have 2 ambulances that we share with the towns of Bartlett and Hart's location, and we pay a measly $46,000 for the service that we get for our ambulance and first responders. So we were paying $18,000. They haven't increased their budget in quite a while, and they went through, and Sue Gaudette does a lot of the budgeting. There are a couple factors in there. Insurance is not paying nearly as much as they used to, and Medicare reimbursement is also going down to pre-COVID dollars. So where it was like $100 and some, it's going to be $20 some. So projecting what they're going to be receiving for insurance reimbursement, which is the bulk of how they operate, is going to be substantially reduced. They have quite an incredible staff, but suffer the same problems that the fire station does as far as trying to get new recruits and new first responders to sign up. So they do an incredible job with a small amount of money contributed from Bartlett and Jackson. This also includes $14,400, I believe, for IV pumps and ventilators, which we got a whole education on some of the equipment that they're going to be replacing. And we don't currently have a capital reserve fund for any ambulance equipment. We have a capital reserve fund for an ambulance, but not for the equipment. So that is also built into this number. So I think it's quite a deal for what we get and what we have to pay for. The other thing I'll tell you too is that we pay them usually twice a year, and they ask for money when they need it, and if they don't need this money because for some reason they've had a flush year with insurance, we may come under budget, but they're very, they're fiscally responsible that way as well.
Unfortunately, Rick Burnick had to leave for a call, but
Yeah.
he could articulate exactly what we need, what they do, and he's been with it for, I don't know, 40 years. Fellow knows what he's doing, and Sue and Joe, who's helping out. Any other questions about the ambulance? Okay. Let's move on to Jay's department. Emery's part, fire department. You can see his budget's going up from 198 to 238,523. Again, we're passing on that 8.7% COLA increase. I mean, they're worth every penny. Think of what they're doing this weekend. Think of all the things they do while we're sleeping, resting, whatever. They're always on call. They're ready to go. Whether it's an accident up in Pinkham Notch, a fire somewhere, responding to Bartlett, backing up for another town, they're having problems. So, Jay, do you want a little bit more to say about your fire department?
Most of it's inflation, building maintenance, and tire roll. I mean, that's the short story.
Yeah.
And,
On the building maintenance line, we did put that at 30,000, just like it was last year. However, we have been talking, and Jerry kind of put a bug in our ear about why don't we put together an expendable trust fund, because that would be more logical to use for fire department maintenance for the building. So right now, as it sits, and we have 30,000 on the line item for the operating budget, and we have 50,000 for an expendable trust fund. I would recommend that we do one or the other, and I would recommend the 50,000 for the expendable trust fund for building repairs and maintenance. That way, if we don't use it this year, we can use it next year and it won't go away. And we know that we're going to be spending money on the fire station. The way we need to word that is that it can be used for repairs, maintenance, or improvement to the station, I believe, or
Refurbishment,
remodeling,
refurbishment, whatever, so that it's broad enough
rebuilding.
that we can use that when we start getting into some of the things that we're talking about, perhaps.
And that
Sprinkler
works, that
system,
works with the
whatever,
DAO?
different things.
Does that work with the?
Oh, you mean with all those different
Yeah.
things in there? I'll have to double check.
So
on.
we're fine tuning it to make sure it flies all and passes all the tests, but the 30,000 out of the operating budget will be reduced and the 50 would sit in the
so
expendable
that'll
trust
be
fund.
down to 208
Right.
roughly.
You want to drop that whole building maintenance down to
What do you
zero?
want to leave so the line item stays in the budget?
I think That's probably a wise decision. I would think maybe leave 5,000 in there just for a line item.
Just to leave it in there for future.
So
That's
drop
good for
the
you.
30 down to 5.
Yeah.
Does that sound?
That sounds
reasonable?
very
I
good.
would go with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
that was a smart move. Any other discussion, folks? Mr. Keller?
I promise I won't be as long as Curly, but I want to jump on his
I'll take
coattails.
that bet.
This is more of a comment. This is more of a comment. He did a real good job in explaining what the future of employment's going to be and the challenge he's got. For the people that's sitting here, and Chief Henry has done a little informal survey, one thing that I want to point out, in the last dozen or so calls, he's taken the attendance of the call, that the amount of people show up. And I'll qualify that by, we don't get a stipend when we sign on, we don't get a stipend for off-duty on 22 below zero and 50-mile-an-hour wind chills, we don't get holidays. The fire department, somebody's got to respond. We get calls for broken pipes to massacres. The average age of the responding members in the last, 10-plus calls, and I showed Selectman DeFrucio a little of this informal one on the board the other day, is a low of 59, I always said 58, maybe one call, to a high of 68 years old. We got 3 new members in the last as many months, which are great. We're getting very few young people. Our membership, I'm 68 years old, and I put 54 years in fire and EMS. We're all getting older, and the problem we have is, it's going to be, in our minds, in some ways, way worse than employment for the police department. Because somebody's got to go. We can't just say, we've got 15 weeks of things of nature that the RSAs say he has to pay or pay stipends. Nobody gets that yet at the fire department. At some point, it's going to fall back on whatever board is sitting over there. You got to start recruiting young people that are in this town and people to come and help volunteer in all kinds of weather and every day of every week of every year. And it's probably going to get to a point where we got to offer something, insurance, some mechanism. And it's going to be very short-lived because those of us that are 68 to, our oldest, what, 83? 68 to 83 years old aren't going to be there, and we're not getting people to replace it. And as Chief Curley points out, it takes a long time to train a police officer. That's with the academy's help and a lot of things, and good leadership and knowledgeable experience. It's very hard for us to do that. So I just want to make a point. You're looking at that fire wages, that's spread out between 24 people of all levels. It's going to get really tough, and really, if you can do anything for this town, tell your neighbors and your friends, if you want to help, especially if you're 18 years of age or older, there's a job for anybody in this town at any age at the fire station. It may be sitting at a radio covering because our system is out. It may be fighting a fire with an air pack on, going in to rescue a person in a burning building. But there's jobs, and they're needed, and we need people to start really coming in. And the ambulance service is already experiencing it. Again, it's a volunteer type basis. Nobody's forced to work. I just wanted to pick up, but I appreciate the time he spent to explain what he's facing, because he's got a tough job there. There's no question. And our 900 people on the voter checklist of registered voters, on a given weekend, Chief, busy weekend, 4,000 people in town, any minimum? And they call, and guess who gets a lot of those calls that are, we all say, oh my God, 2:30 in the morning, somebody's up cooking toast, and they burn toast, and the alarm goes off. We can't roll over in bed. I just wanted everybody to understand that.
So
thank you for the time.
Chief Henry, you've had some success.
Yeah, we
Bringing in
did
some recruits.
recruitment, specifically recruitment, pretty hard the last couple months, and we have had some success. We gained 3 or 4 actual young people.
From Jackson itself, or?
Yep, one very close to Jackson, the other is another one in Jackson. So we have had some success recruiting young folks. But it's a valley-wide, nationwide issue.
Sure.
Every department, whether it's police or fire, is in the same boat, EMS. So it's definitely, there's gonna be some changes down the road for sure, on that, for sure.
Bill?
I was just gonna ask the question whether Bartlett and Conway have the same issues.
Everybody.
We're actually in, membership wise, we're doing really well compared to most departments.
And what's your ideal age? I mean, I heard you said people to 83, but
You're in the age group.
You know, we're getting, you know, we're going to a lot of
You don't
calls,
know,
and everybody's 55, 57 or older, majority of the people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anything
Kills you.
30s
It's
and 40s
not your
would be.
chronological age, it's your, how old does your body feel when it's
Yeah,
gone, right?
exactly. You know, and it's hard to find young people in Jackson, there's just no way around that. There's nobody young can afford to stay here
Right, well, that's,
because of buying land.
and that's not gonna get any better.
Hmm?
That's not gonna get any better. So even if you, money and benefits and all the things that Billy's talking about, and I'm sure that would be an inducement for someone, but if they have no place to live and they're not around, then what? I don't know. Any other questions for Chief Henry? Okay, let's move on to emergency management. Actual budget, 10,300. This was 2022, actual is 8,088. We bumped that up to 10,848, or 5.32% increase. Again, COLA increases in there. Any questions about emergency management?
Thanks, Emily.
I'll see you tomorrow. All right, I didn't see Gary here today, but that's all right. Highway administration. Again, the actual budget, 221,199. They're proposing 264,965. You see what the increase is there, but again, the COLA and a stipend that we're increasing. And that stipend is basically, we told our guys, it used to be this way, then we kind of changed it, but it's gone back to where wintertime, you don't take a vacation when you're in the highway department. You have to be around. And so we just bumped up that amount that they get for wintertime, just being here and staying here. And we have a good crew, really, really good crew. Gary's done a tremendous job. And he's very versatile. He does a lot of things for us. And so the rest of the crew. So this is all money well spent for a good four-man crew that we have down there. Any questions? Sorry, Gary isn't here. We're ready for him, but I couldn't answer all of them. What's that? Okay. Solid waste disposal. Here we go.
Did you want to go over the
Oh,
highway operating budget?
Oh, you want to go through each one?
I didn't know.
Okay, well, all right, I didn't know that everybody had a chance. We could, just to see exactly
You don't
what.
have to go over all the line items, I just
Right.
didn't want to skip over.
Oh, okay, all right, that's right, I did just skip over that. Okay, so the actual budget was 330,949. The proposed is 372,587, which is a 6.7% increase. And you can see in the bottom of the notes, the highway block grant is determined by the state. But, here again, you can look at some of the items and you can see.
Well, the big one is the cost of diesel fuel for
Yeah,
the
right. I mean,
highway equipment.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious, and I think it's obvious to all of us. And, perhaps fuel will start going down. It'd be nice to submit the cost of fuel with electric, but time will tell on that. More questions? Okay, all right, now the solid waste disposal. And 108,000 was our actual 541. We're looking for 140 here again. Wage and health insurance budget numbers. What is exactly what we're seeing from
These
Bartlett?
actually come directly from Bartlett, they give us the numbers.
Okay.
And there's a full-time position open at the transfer station right now.
Right.
So, anybody wants to apply for that,
Yeah.
that's another one that's open.
They've had a hard time filling
Really?
positions, that's why they're
Yeah.
under budget, is
Yeah.
because they had
Less
been working
staff.
short pretty much all year long.
Right.
Yep, and it looks like they're heading into this year, gonna be the same situation, so.
Right. I'll say Bob has been doing a great job out
He
there.
does a good job.
And there was an inspection last week, and this, that, just couple of minor violations of what we're doing up there in the state, so that was pretty good. It was unannounced, it just showed up, and so that worked. You just never know about those things, but worked out That was good. Any questions, folks? All right, animal control, is that you? Chief?
Yes, well, that $500 for animal control is the total cost of animal control. The town used to have an animal control officer, but when I took over, I blended those responsibilities in with the regular patrol responsibilities. This $500 represents a yearly stipend. In fact, I just approved that bill, Julie, put it in your inbox. A yearly bill or stipend or whatever you want to call it to the animal shelter in Conway that gives us rights and privileges to use it should we have a stray that we have to shelter. We haven't sheltered an animal since I've been here. We generally confine the owner. Ryan adopted a cat, so that cat didn't have to go to the shelter. He still has it. So we do pretty good with that.
Refrigerator full of.
But if you don't,
I'll let you say, because I was thinking the same thing.
She has a refrigerator full of pork.
no,
Sorry, bad joke, bad joke.
I can't even eat them.
The pig taste.
Sauce
Had
now.
the 3 people at work, I was thinking the same thing.
But if you don't pay the $500, you don't have the right to use it. And
Yeah,
it's graduated by community, like Conway pays 10,000 plus. So I think this is probably as low as it gets. We gotta pay it every year.
yeah. Any questions? Comments? Nothing, okay. Public welfare, unfortunate, budget is 6,000, yeah, that's the thing. But proposed budget is 6,000. You know, we've been fortunate, I don't know, do we have any on the docket, anybody coming for us looking for some help, or we're ready for it, but
We have had
Occasionally.
occasionally. All right. Some of us have been around here long enough, remember the Iron Mountain houses where people were having troubles, and that's where they live. And from any of the towns, but we actually asked the towns to pay them to put them there, remember? I don't remember that. Joyce. Okay. All right. Anything about that? Okay. The library, you can see it's a actual budget of 2022, 99,563, bumped up to 122,469. Here again, wages, and our librarian is leaving, but she's not leaving until June. Is that what
She's
she said?
already left.
Yeah.
No, but I think, no,
She's interim, she's a
Yeah.
part-time.
right, she's gonna be an
person.
interim, that's what I mean, okay, but,
And we do have a new
She's
one.
no longer a full-time employee.
right, right.
And we have a new
Yeah, I
one
saw that.
coming on board.
Any questions, folks, with that? All right, other Conservation Commission, no increase, there we are, 1,500. Questions, comments? We've got a nice garden back there, I think they have some spots left if anybody wants to do any gardening this year. They don't have the space themselves, do that out back there. And whatever tomatoes you grow, they're community tomatoes.
Yeah.
You wanna
One
see-
slice for you, one slice.
Good. All right, other culture and recreation, and our friend Hank is part of that. Okay, he's been doing a terrific job filming all of these and getting out there, and just as well as e-news to let people know what's going on around here. So we thank him for that, Hank. And any questions
And we
about it?
finally have Valley Vision back.
Yes, that's right, and those on Channel 3. That's right. You won't see these meetings, but you'll see other events and things that happen that maybe Jackson kids are involved in, or adults.
Actually,
Things
you
that happen to
can,
Whitney
you
Sunny.
can watch the Conway Select meetings, and thank goodness
Why?
that we don't live in Conway.
Why would I want to do that? Oh, they could be cool. Well,
Learning what not to do.
Yeah,
don't.
no paid parking.
Pay part of that program.
Yeah, that's really something there. Isn't it? All right, cemeteries.
That's it.
We
That's
did?
your train.
Yeah.
turn
Wrong way,
on.
wrong goal.
Oh, here you go. Parks and Recreation. 6,700 is the actual. We're not asking for anything more on that. That's basically, we do send kids to the Recreation Department. You know a little bit about that, right? Right? Anybody have any questions about that? Something's always been in an item for us. Okay. Debt service, the actual is 48,773. Proposed budget, 62,373. It's actually down a little bit. The bond principal, you can see all of the bond interest, everything. Interest Valley Crossroad Bridge, and we're getting close to getting that bridge. Is that right? This,
That's what they
they're
said.
promising this year.
That's what they
Promising?
say.
How close are they to a final design?
Is that like 2030 or
They're
what?
going out for a construction bid soon.
Yeah.
So they have a final design.
Yeah, it's moving forward. I mean, it's really actually slow.
Is it possible within this construction year or
That's what they say.
possible?
It's possible, that's what she said. He said he doubts it, so hard to say. We're hopeful, okay?
We're gonna-
We're doing everything we can to get it done, you know?
Has anybody seen the final design, other than Burke?
I
Just
think
the
the
description of it.
last time they
We'll keep it
forwarded
up.
all their documents, I personally didn't look through all of it again, but
I was wondering if they finalized on a steel rail,
Oh, yeah, the color.
Yeah, I think they
or
did
a
because
wooden
we.
rail.
We
No, I
did, we
think
did
we-
all that.
Yeah, we did, that was
yeah,
steel.
the trusses are back, the,
Yeah,
The trestles back?
yeah.
trusses are back, yeah.
But they will have to redo the
Ornamental ironwork.
ornamental
front.
part of the
Right.
walkway
Yep.
because of the requirements, new requirements. If I may make one comment, I think our investment to replace the deck, what was it, 5 years ago now? For $5,000 was a great
A good,
investment.
absolutely. We haven't lost anyone since.
I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, we can see the total operating budget. Does anybody have any questions about the debt service or any of that? Okay. Total operating budget, 2,473,512. Actual 2,329,247. We're proposing 2,795,386. It's an increase of 13%, but when you add up everything that we did, increases, electric, you can see why that operating budget is it's only natural. It's like our home operating budgets, everybody's gone up sometimes, right? Any questions, comments? Agents to expend capital reserve funds. 249,078. What am I?
That's for last year.
Which is money we
What
pulled
was
out of-
expended last
Last
year
We
year.
took out of the
for
capital.
the PD
All right.
truck and highway truck
All right.
and generators.
Generated for the library. Very good.
What do you, on the capital reserves, have you got a rough bottom line on what you're gonna stay status quo pretty much, or as far as what we're gonna appropriate for 2023?
Well, we got, I get into the warrant articles,
Okay.
Okay,
we'll get to that.
okay, I'm sorry,
And then we'll, yeah, but
didn't go that far when I looked at it.
That last stuff was the stuff we spent last year.
uh,
This is what's over the proposal.
It must be their straight guy, that's the next page.
all right, so here we go with the recurring the warrant articles, okay? And you can see that we budgeted $306,500 for 2023. Now, some of these are recurring. I just had one question about, for Jay, if I could, just to give us a sense of where we're at. Now, we just bought the new front-wheel drive automatic fire engine that we will have in about 18 months, maybe.
Yeah.
You're hoping, right? Now, this money that we're putting towards another fire truck, when are you estimating we're gonna get that fire truck? And what are we replacing? I'm just wondering if you know. And if you don't, I mean, if you're not prepared
I
for
don't
that.
have that in front of me.
There's
It's a
actually a
ways
schedule.
out.
Do you have your town?
It's like 2036 or something.
Yeah, it's like 2006 plus 30, 2036. Probably.
Yeah.
Is a guess. I mean, it'll be pretty dang expensive then.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea,
Barbara, that's last year's, it changed.
Fire truck that we bought last year's town meeting
Yeah.
was 700 grand, plus or minus.
Yeah.
That truck today, 12 months later,
Yeah.
is $1 million. That's how much the price has increased in just 1 year. And the wait time now is over a year and a half. It's just crazy what's going on. Radios, $10,000 for a radio for a fire truck that you gotta wait over a year for.
So this
So that, the money's gonna be
is some of
Oh,
this.
okay, all right.
Incredible. down the road. We're good for a little while. We're good for a little while.
So again, what, you don't remember exactly what the schedule would be for like the next purchase? What is it again?
I think that's 36. Is
That's
that,
right.
uh,
36.
2036 is that next big
Yeah,
truck.
okay.
02 is an 09, so 2029 you might see the utility truck, but it may last longer than that, it should last longer than that. The forestry truck, we just received the old town truck to kind of try to do a little bit of an upgrade from the army truck. That's being worked on right now in the fire station, trying to get that situated. The Firefighters Association footed the money for a flatbed body for it, so we can make that usable. So hopefully that'll get us through a while.
Right. So what are the years of the ones we have? Our fire trucks.
The oldest one, not including the oldest one we got right now, because that's getting replaced in a year.
Right.
The next one is an 06.
Okay. All right, so that's the 2036 is what you're saying.
06, I think, and then the utility truck's in 09. The newest fire truck is a 2016,
So-
and then we've got a 2020, I don't know if it's a 22 or 23 coming.
That's the new one that's coming.
That's the new one, and then the forestry truck, the used highway truck that we acquired, is a 2014.
We on the sort of 30-year schedule, like, that's what we replaced, because I remember we bought the one in 1988 that we're getting rid of and replacing.
Yep,
The
the
new
one
one
we're
we're getting.
replacing with the 22 or 3 is a 1989.
Right.
So that one's, that's some age on it.
30 years and
It's
everything.
been between 20 and 25 years to 30 years is usually how long they've been lasting us.
Right. And well, the one that we replaced after 30 years, because I was here in
Yeah.
'88 when we bought that, and Andy
Yeah,
agreed
yeah,
with
that
us cheap
one,
at the
that
time.
one we got our dollars, got good dollars out of that.
Well, one of the reasons as I understand it, because I've talked to a few people, is the kind of maintenance that you folks put on. You do a lot of work.
Keep it
Unfortunately,
clean.
especially, some of the mechanical things that you know how to do.
Yeah.
I think it was Billy Kelly was telling me about that, how much work you guys actually do in there,
They're extremely expensive pieces of equipment. It's absolutely expensive.
Did you,
The ladder truck right now is $2 million.
yeah,
Or what, in 2034 to 2036 range to replace the oldest full-size engine we have. One this year is $1 million. If we ordered it tomorrow, what's that gonna cost 13 years down the road?
There's it.
$2 million? How do we prepare for that? And I know Jerry and I've talked, when you get a big purchase like that, we probably should look at borrowing money, but the problem with that is, by the time you pay off the bond, you've already surpassed the replacement of another vehicle.
Right. So we have looked at, just looking at briefly, and thinking a lot about what are we gonna do down the road? Are we gonna take that third engine, big truck, and try to go maybe with a smaller truck, make it easier to operate, easy to drive,
would it also
make
be,
it a little bit cheaper.
would it be an automatic?
Yeah.
Would it also be an automatic, all-wheel drive?
No, probably wouldn't be all-wheel drive, but, so we are looking at every option of what we can do to what we gotta do to make things work. And,
Reevaluate your fleet.
you know, there's a lot of different variables, you know, what you wanna carry on and how much water, all that stuff. And we've even looked, you know, we've looked at ISO stuff, so.
Okay, all right, well, thanks for that, everybody get a pretty good idea of what we're looking at. Road reconstruction, we're asking for the same amount, this is in the highway department, unfortunately Gary's not here, but I think Gary's anticipating an ice and snowstorm of some kind tonight, so. Highway truck, there again, we're always getting ready for the next truck down the road, I don't have an exact time of it, but it's basically what we've always done, to make sure we place one truck on the other. Bartlett Jackson ambulance,
I'll hit on
we
that
went,
one.
yeah.
So when the budget was presented, they also, Rick and Sue also proposed ordering a new ambulance. We didn't commit to that this year, and Bartlett did not either. But the one truck that they have that is older will need to be replaced. They're on about a 24-month schedule to replace a new ambulance. So Bartlett does not have a capital reserve fund for anything, so they do bond equipment, that's the way they roll. But we do have $24,000 in a capital reserve fund as of the end of the year, so we're proposing to bump it to $50,000. The cost of a new ambulance was $275,000, right around there, and our half of it would be, you know, this 50 would help us get up to half of what it would cost if we ordered it today. So again, we're just projecting and trying to put money in there, so we're saving for probably next year when we want to either order or
Right.
plan on a new ambulance.
Rick Murray mentioned either, he said 2025, perhaps 2026, the latest bid that
Right.
they had in terms of what it would cost.
Right.
So,
And-
but we have to do it.
Just speaking for all of the equipment that we own, whether it be highway, fire, or ambulance, you can walk into and look at an ambulance, a fire, any fire equipment or the police cruisers, and they're immaculate, they're well-maintained, and that's why we get the years out of them, like you mentioned, Frank. So the fact that we keep them well-maintained helps us plan better for when we have to replace them. It ain't cheap, but we do a good job of it, so.
We're very fortunate, really. Highway heavy equipment.
Question?
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. There was a question. Up.
No.
Are we putting enough money in our highway maintenance to repair roads where they're necessary?
Gary was really comfortable about leaving his budget level, and we bumped it up in some areas on the, for the, mostly for the inflationary costs of running his equipment, but he was very comfortable leaving it flat for the
I think
100,000.
Jerry was specific about road work.
Hmm?
I think Jerry's being specific about road work line item.
Are you talking about
Yeah, I'm
the
talking-
operating budget or
Yeah,
the
it's going to
warrant
the operating
article?
budget.
Yeah, no, it's in the operating budget.
Yeah.
Are we putting enough money into rebuilding our roads if we're necessary?
Well, I can only say that Gary recommended these numbers, and we trust him to, you know.
And I also looked at the next thing, the bridge repair.
Mhm.
I wondered if, Jay and I talked the other day, isn't there a bridge out on Dundee that needs work?
I think the box culvert by Crossroads red listed. I think that just got red listed this year.
Frank, a point
$1
to
million.
Jerry's
Yes, sir.
point,
Yeah.
going back to, are we putting enough money into roads? And you know, when you were prior selectman, we had some pretty tough shape on a lot of our roads. And we had a very good, aggressive rebuilding, and we spent a lot of money for, 10 years or so?
Yeah.
But we haven't spent that kind of money in the last several years, and yeah, they're in good shape, and it's okay to say we're okay, but
Right.
to Jerry's point, my feeling is, that's something also that, are we putting enough money? Because we're gonna start doing that rebuild phase
Yeah.
again some point, and we haven't really looked at anything to start preparing for that for money. Again, it's a bottom line budget, and we all like to keep it down, but that's an important thing. You know, when you were probably selectman, a lot of people screamed about a lot of rough, bad roads, and I don't think anybody wants to go through that day again.
So the road reconstruction expendable, not expendable, capital reserve fund. 3-4 years ago, maybe 5, that number got dropped. I don't remember the reason why, but I know it got dropped considerable. It was up there pretty good at one point. And it was, when it got dropped, I remember some discussion about bringing it back up. So that's kind of, I think, a little bit of what Jerry was talking about too, was having that money in there in case we decide we want to redo a road.
Sarah, please.
Yes, I would agree with that, because anybody that would like, they can ride up Green Hill, I'm sure, you know, the police department does their road checks and so on, or people that live on that road from 76 Green Hill Road down to the corner where they cross the road for the cross-country skiing. I think in the last, I'm gonna say 3 weeks, the change in the road and the bumps and the lumps are pretty bumpy. So I wanna put mine on the list.
So duly noted.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, sorry.
Would the capital improvement plan include infrastructure of roads?
It would. I mean, the question I had was, you know, again, this number is, except for the ambulance, is flat. And yet your entire budget suggests that we have a 10 to 15% inflationary cycle going for a lot of these things, particularly equipment, if I'm hearing correctly from Jay.
Oh, yeah.
The 15% probably is light. And yet we're still reserving at the same rate. So I guess, yeah, for a capital improvement plan, if we're looking at that, we're certainly going to take a look at the adequacy of that. But I guess the question I would have is that won't happen until much after this budget's already
Right.
in. And the question is whether or not it makes sense to at least do an inflationary bump on some of these numbers, just cause. Not to stay at the same rate. My recollection is that most of these numbers are similar to what they were the prior year and the prior year before that. And I don't recall the bump down. I may not have been.
I could go back and check, but I thought we were putting about 100 into that, weren't we, Chip?
Yeah, it was at least, it was 100. We had
Go back
one year,
and
the
sign.
big year was a lot more. But I thought it was
A couple of years,
100.
200,000.
You know, this year may not be able to increase it, but you're definitely gonna wanna think about that coming up soon.
Well, we'll have that discussion with Gary. You know, if
I
I was
would-
here, we'd be talking, because he tries to be very conservative about this, okay? But I think if we gave him some encouragement based on what we're hearing here, I think we might find that we should be bumping this up soon.
Well, I think if you want to bump it up now, you certainly, he's not
I
going to
know, but
argue
without
that.
him here, well, that's fine.
Frank,
I mean, so if we looked at all,
suggestion-
if we looked at all the lines on the capital reserve funds,
Frank,
Okay.
a suggestion to.
Hold on.
Susan.
I'm sorry.
if we looked at each of the lines, with the exception of the ambulance, because that's a newer increase, but if we said we're gonna bump it up by 10%, because our inflation is around 10%, it would go up about $30,000, or give or take. So do we want to recommend that we bump each of those line items for the capital reserve fund by 10% this year, and at least get a head start on it?
Well, I'm getting that kind of general assessment from some people here, I respect Bill, Billy, Jerry.
I'm not sure,
talking
I'm
about it.
not sure.
Jay has mentioned, and Jay has been there, I mean, he was a highway.
I'm not sure I'd bump everything up with that, but just, it looked to me like the highway was
Yeah.
low.
The road reconstruction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jay, as a former road agent,
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you're gonna need more money than the combination of the road reconstruction capital reserve fund, the highway block grant, and the one, and there's another one in the actual budget for road work.
It's like 100,000.
Combine them, I mean,
Well, it's
200,
200,000.
250 grand don't get you much.
Mhm.
It really doesn't. And you don't have to spend it if you don't need to, but
Yeah,
if something happens and all of a sudden you say, hey, we're getting behind and we ought to do 2 roads instead of 1, then it'd be there.
Well, I would like to think there'd be a master plan for what roads would be up for reconstruction or resurfacing
Yeah.
or whatever you have to do to them. I mean, that would be, you
and I
know,
bet Gary has probably an idea of some of that.
exactly. I mean, I know, and getting back to what Bill said, you know, when Pat was road agent, when you were road agent, we did, when I first started 12 years ago, we did have, I thought, a lot of money in the budget to get caught up, and that was the premise, that we were behind, we would get caught up. And then we were finally caught up, and I did make the suggestion of lowering because we were caught up. If we're behind again, then obviously we'll have to raise it, but I want to know if we're behind again.
2010 was the year we did I did the big capital plan for roads, and that was the year we took money out of the unreserved fund balance, and we had a huge line item for roads, and I created a 10-year plan. So that 10-year plan is
Hired.
kind of getting towards the end. So we need to sit around with Gary and look at that again and just see what's going on.
Well, I think the assertion that inflation is added to just about everything, I think what Barbara said makes good sense. Maybe not all of them, but maybe we should add 10%, which is about that increase. It's not a lot, but at least this is a place to start,
Yeah,
you know, so 10% of that would be another $6,500.
That's too much, though.
yeah.
But I know, that's the thing, so.
I mean,
But
and
where do we-
the,
where
and
do
then
we
the
wanna
other,
go?
and the other thing is, do you say, okay, you know what, we're gonna leave all the equipment alone and bump that up to $95,000 or $100,000 and take your 10% in that? You know, you can't move your numbers around in the capital reserve funds like you can
Right.
with operating budget. So, but at the same time, if you know, you bump the operating budget up to 130,000, or do you bump the capital reserve fund up to 100,000 for highway reconstruction? And at least get a head start on what this is, and like.
Well, we
Bill
can bump it up
said,
now,
a
and
year from
then
now.
Gary can get back to us on what he thinks he really needs, since he's
Yeah.
hired today.
So
We
which
can
figure?
adjust it at the meeting if we have to.
And if you do it to the capital reserve fund, the money
It's
stays
there.
in that account.
Right.
That's the benefit of doing
Yeah.
it that way.
So you want to increase road reconstruction from 65 to what?
Well, I heard someone say 100. Do I hear 100?
Don't go there.
Let's do 95, it's visually
Fix the house
more
of Powell,
appealing.
that's not-
No?
Can I make a suggestion to the
Yes.
selectmen and to the planning board? And I say this, I go back to my uncle, Jay's grandfather, Peter. Jay, many years, since he was 5 years around equipment, Pat, and I'm not slamming Gary, I love Gary to death, like a brother. His experience is building construction. What I would suggest for your capital improvement plan and for the selectmen's support, which we've done in the past, I know Howard used to lean on Arnold Bennett a lot as a big, get somebody that knows road construction. If you gotta pay him to come in, walk the roads, run the roads with Gary, with whoever, that knows and it can give some real good experience on what you should be thinking about, would be a tremendous help. Don't just plan on, and as I said, but we have 4 highway guys that have the hardest experience is maybe 2.5 years. Get somebody that knows, I know Jay's got a lot of it, but get a road builder to come in and give you some guidance and
You know,
what they think.
there's some
Because
folks,
that could cost a lot of money going forward.
Billy, there's some folks who don't know who Arnold Bennett was or is. Okay? He's the guy that built the road going up to our transfer site.
Oh, this
He
is
was the
true.
man, it was him and Dickie Quint,
Yeah.
junior, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And they
well,
did
we
that
had,
road.
as,
And that road's held up pretty good.
as the chief said, you know, the good old days. Well, unfortunately, those good old days had a lot of experience, and we've got a few of them that are here, but very few. As important as roads are in this town,
Yeah.
we all know,
Right.
it would behoove us to get somebody that is a road builder.
Right. Well, we can have that conversation.
I would like to make a recommendation to increase the road reconstruction capital reserve to 95,000 for this year, pending Gary's input, and that basically takes the total up 10%, which is kind of in line, plus the ambulance, but sort of in line with where our inflationary numbers are,
Mhm.
and reevaluate the rest for next year.
Okay,
That's my recommendation.
so seems to me, people out here think that maybe we should be spending a little bit more and make sure that we keep our roads good. The only way you're gonna do that is work on it and spend money.
Well,
You
they
have to do it.
also, like you said,
But I
the
like
money
it.
sits there, if we reduce it the next year because we don't need it, the money is there.
Exactly. To look down some of these other items, I don't, the police cruiser, 15,000. Chief Pearlie,
I'm pardon?
I'm sorry, we're just talking about the police cruiser, you want 15,000 you're asking for.
Yes.
So we're on the schedule there, obviously.
Yeah, the oldest vehicle in the fleet has over 120,000 miles on it. It's a 2016. My concern is it'll age out this year. Last year, we had some considerable expenses, repair expenses. Considerable in like complexity, but costs are going up. So that's probably scheduled to be replaced, I'm gonna say in 2024, because if you order it in 2023, you're not gonna see it, as Jay said, a fire truck's 18 months. Which is also, I think, a consideration to keep in mind about redundancy. I always like to say redundancy bears repeating. But if you cannot instantly up armor things that break or you lose them, people included. But I ordered the last police car I ordered it December 12th of last year. It went online patrolling in August. So
What was the
that's,
total cost of that when you were done?
the total cost was like 52,
So if we.
but
put-
that's a combination of
Right,
vehicle and
everything.
guts.
But if we have 40,000 in there now, we put another 15 in there, so that's, 55,000, we're close, but.
No, I think we'd be okay because we've got, with 55,000, you can probably buy the vehicle. The vehicle is a Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck called SSV, which is a police package. It's lower suspension, so it's not as tippy at high speeds as some other little things. So that gets you the car. The guts can cost a lot of money and there's a lot of downtime. I waited a long time for the radio for the new car, but we have an option of either buying a new radio and having a spare car, or transferring the guts of the 16 into a new car. So that speeds it up a little bit. But we also have off book some money from a donation to the police department a couple of years ago that we haven't spent, and we also have the equipment line. So between the three funding sources, I'm predicting ordering it later in 2023, not currently.
Well, the supply chains have gotten better. Yeah, I know.
A
some
little,
things-
well, a little.
Yeah, but
A little.
it's improving,
I ordered
It's
a
really
radar.
good if you want an electric Corvette.
The thing is,
I got mine.
How about if you want a new window?
unlike the military, that, if they break a truck, they have 10 sitting in inventory. Modern administration of public funds is you reduce inventory because inventory is waste, but that was predicated on a concept that supply chain was rapid and quick and you had a lot of choices.
Sure.
We have few choices, it's slow, and competition and inflation is driving price up. So I want to stay away from advocating an increase because I think we can do it. Bill, you make great sense with increases by inflation, but we do have a big chunk for payroll. I feel the best asset in the police department is the people, so I want to put my money on that color of the roulette wheel, and I'll spin it. And I'm not going to advocate for an increase in that line.
Well, all right, let's move on. Thank you, Chief. Reevaluation of town property, solar energy. What is solar energy? What is that exactly?
It's a 6-year buyout for the,
Okay. All right, let's go to the recurring.
before you do that, I need a motion and a vote.
Oh, that's
For the
right,
increase.
that's right. We
I'll
have,
make a motion to increase the road reconstruction to 95,000,
Well, just a vote
which
for
is
the
a
whole-
total increase of 30,000, so that would bring it to $338,500.
I'll second.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, but also Julie is saying that she wants to make sure that we all go, we're for this entire thing, so that she can say 3 selectmen, 2 to 1, or whatever.
Gotcha.
So I'll make a motion that we accept this, that we have here, as we altered it a little bit. Anybody want to second it? Well, we're making a
I just said
Well,
plus the
but that was
30
the
for a
money.
total of 338.5
right.
there.
That's what we just.
All right, so we're all,
I
okay.
think
All
we're,
right, I thought we were just doing the 95. That's what
I
you were doing.
did the
She-
that
she
plus
added
the
it.
300.
Okay,
plus
all
the
right,
30.
okay, so we're good. So we got,
And then, but then I need to know, you know, in the town report where it's like.
yeah, we know. Well, that's what I was trying to
Yeah.
do here.
That's
Okay.
it, right.
What's that? I do it by section.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I think we just voted.
But did you all say?
Make a
All in
motion.
favor, aye.
Okay, so you will.
Okay.
And could you replay that?
Yeah.
Next one.
Recurring expendable trust funds, okay, 103,000. Those
Mostly
are
reduced
103.5,
because
and
the
it's been
bridge
reduced.
doesn't need
The
the
bridge, the
85,000.
bridge that will be put in this year, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Money for the transfer station, state aid reconstruction, bridge repair, again, we've made, Julie has been talking with them and this and that, she said, I think we can reduce that now because we're very, very close. And so that's where we're at 15. I hope we'll be walking over that bridge and
Yeah.
all of that this year. Police department equipment, chief is asking for the same amount that he did
Mhm.
last year, okay? Fire department equipment, we've increased that
Mhm.
from 3 to 3 to 20. Now, what was the main?
That's air packs.
Air packs.
Couldn't seem to, Jackson's doesn't seem to qualify for grants, all that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned we should have a grant writer or something, maybe you could be more aggressive, but where are you gonna find that? Whether they'll do it for Jackson anyway, wouldn't work with it. Maloon Road groundwater maintenance, our old dump up there in Maloon Road. Apparently, they're gonna do a little more sophisticated check of what's going on up there.
New requirements.
Right,
It's all-
just new DES requirements, whatever, so we had to bump that up. So far, so good, all these years.
Is that gonna stay bumped up, or is that
Oh, yeah.
one time deal?
Well, they've added a new requirement, so I don't know if the fee is just the catch-up fee or if it's gonna be every year yet.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping they'd forget about it, That's the way we started it off about 20 years ago. So maybe they'll just forget about it, All right,
And then the equipment has the voting machine in there.
right.
Yes.
Town office equipment, and that includes the potential, that we're gonna get it at some point. And again, we hope to have this voting machine up and running, going for the 2024 election, that includes everything. That's a big election, so we won't be there until 1 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
counting votes and checking off things with our hands. Won't that be something? All right. So then, all right, so we have to make a motion on, to accept, okay, so I entertain a motion to approve this reoccurring expendable trust funds.
I'll make that motion.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's another 3-0 for you. All right, recurring social services. These are, now they used to be petitioned, but do they still have to petition, or we kind of streamlined the process on this a little bit, as I understand?
Well, so the group that's sitting in this recurring social services have been established for a number of years, the most recent being the Conway Area Humane Society. We've started getting a few more articles coming, or petitioned articles coming in, so the question is, how many years do you want them to submit petition versus becoming just an automatic recurring social service?
But they do have to write us and request it each year. They don't have to have the signatures,
Right.
correct?
Exactly, yep.
Right.
And I know from sitting on a couple boards that pretty much every other town asks a representative to be at one of the budget hearings to justify what they're asking for. I don't think that's a bad idea. I think in the requests, at the very least, a letter is such a minimal amount. Like, I like to know how many families are served by each of these organizations or
And they do-
what they provide, and
They do
so,
have the backup for
and-
everything that they've
and so,
requested.
does anybody care about seeing that or want to see that, or is it something that you feel like we could say if you have questions in the town, you know, at the town office, the information is there? You know, certainly we know that the fireworks for the chamber and the beautification project are different than the ones that are not necessarily Jackson-based. I'm not opposed to any of these that are on here also, I'm just saying that too. I think all of the organizations that are listed on here are valuable. I'm also gonna bring up something that may cause people to shudder, but recently we had the Freiburg Airport that was very important in an organ donor situation. And so if they ask for money again, I would say it's worth it to support them. So, you know, there's personal feelings that go along with a lot of different social services. We have so many nonprofits and great organizations in the valley, and I think this is money well spent, in my opinion.
On that score, Jerry Dougherty was always sort of headed up the petition for the Freiburg International Airport, and we wanted to say a few words about it, Jerry,
Yeah,
in endorsing.
I used
the idea,
to, years ago, petition it,
Yeah,
and then
you
for
were
a
there.
while, it got put on automatically. And this year, tragically and hopefully, I mean, a Mercy jet was able to come in really inclement weather and take organs to Philadelphia and contributed to the saving of 4 lives. Apart from that, the STEM program at the high school has students, I think 4 or 5 of them just passed their written exams for their pilot's license, and 1 even soloed. So the town is getting, I mean, I don't know if any of those kids are from Jackson or not.
Yeah, I think one of them is
Just-
Yeah, but, I mean, the airport serves a really important function, and for I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar asset, and $500 from us is really just a stipend, a token, and say, we support you. And I know that it's been a lightning rod in some cases, but
In the past, a little bit,
I'll take the lightning if I need to, and
right?
come down off the moderator stand and speak to it.
Sure. I think, what does the board think about that? Putting that money in for that?
Have they asked for any money?
They haven't, that's the interesting thing.
They
but
stopped asking.
Yeah.
We want to see a formal request, like you were saying, for those
Can
others.
I get money without asking?
Right. No,
I mean, you should
So
put
I
a
think-
request, I mean, that's,
We're-
yeah.
Well, we'll make sure they make the request, and we have
I
Jerry
think
that's
they
going
missed
to
the
give us
date
the
though.
justification of it all.
The date.
Is the intention then to do that as a
What?
petition then, Jerry?
It's too late
It's
for,
too late to do a petition.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying,
So-
they missed that date.
well, it would have to be something that was recommended by the selectmen if you wanted to pursue it, otherwise it can't go.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
right.
it's,
What would the dollar amount be if?
it'd be
if you-
$500, and, you know,
Just
Is that what it was before,
Yeah,
Jerry?
it
it was always $500.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
It was one of the smallest amounts on there.
yes.
Yep.
And, I mean, I don't wanna go to the mat over it, but,
We
I just wanna make the comment, that it's a valuable asset.
I mean, you can get voted out, but would you stand up for $500?
Absolutely. Okay, hold on. Okay, Sarah.
Well, I was actually going to suggest that it be 1,000 because I feel with, as we were all saying, the 8.4% and all this other
8.7.
8.7, excuse me, that knowing persons that have used that airport and what it means, I really think that, I think it would be money well spent, and if we can give, I'm not even sure what Northern Union Services is, but, I think that there are people here in town and people that live close by that use that airport, and as he says, it can be a life-saving situation, and I think that we should do it.
And it has in the past as well, I mean, people from Jackson have used it in life-saving situations.
Did you want to make a motion?
You know? I mean, I make a motion, we do give something to the airport. I'm trying to, you know, I heard 1,000 from Sarah, we've been talking, it's traditionally been 500. Jerry's sort of been the point man, what would be your advice?
I thank Sarah for her comments, but I think the 500
Sets us off
is
again.
showing Freiburg that we support them in what they do.
Okay.
I mean, they get, what happens with the operation of the airport is that if they don't get the operating budget from Conway, was putting in 10 grand, if they bailed out for any reason, Freiburg has to, by law, make up the difference. And they get, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the Mulford Fund, but Mulford was the guy who wrote Hopple Cassidy. And Freiburg has a huge endowment from that. And when they have to, they pull from that to support the airport.
Okay.
So I think $500 is just our way of saying, hey, we're with you.
Okay. And I think we all agree, so I'll make a motion that we include the Air Freiburg International in the recurring social services, the amount of $500.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, am I putting it in as Eastern Slope Airport or Freiburg International?
Well, it's Eastern, I call it Freiburg.
Whatever.
It's not Freiburg, is it?
Yeah,
Isn't it Eastern Airport?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
what's the proper name for it?
If
Eastern
you have an
Airport?
article,
Listen to me.
if you have an article, don't forget, you can make an amendment on the floor to raise a law, but if you don't have an article,
Yeah, that's
you
why
cannot
That's why we're doing it.
Right.
create one on the town meeting floor.
That's
So
why I was
that's
pushing.
a
Jerry,
good
what
way to
is,
do it.
Jerry,
You
what
can even
is
zero it out if you wanted to.
the, Jerry, what is the proper name for it? Is it Eastern Slope?
Eastern Slope Airport.
Eastern
Okay.
Slope, we're part of the
No,
Eastern
no,
Slope.
no.
So
That's always
while
a
we're
joke.
on that topic,
Yeah.
did you want to talk about the
So-
petition?
Yeah, there's a petition, article from Mount Washington Valley supports recovery for $1,500. And the reason why that is below the line is because that was brought last year as a first year. So Janice Spinney is the executive director and has to get signatures for that. So, does anyone know or everyone know what Mount Washington Valley Supports Recovery is? They own a building in Center Conway and they provide shelter, get back on your feet services for women that are in need, whether they're in the shelter because they're escaping a volatile relationship or drug rehab or whatever. So they have clothing, bedding, and services to help people get back on their feet, find jobs and employment. And I'm, again, support that foundation and that organization fully. So I would like to make a motion, if you two want to agree with it or not, to move that $1,500 up from Mount Washington Valley Supports Recovery from the petition up to the recurring social services.
Yep. All those, make a motion, you made the motion?
I made the motion.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye. Okay. Good one.
thank you.
Yeah, makes sense.
What was the amount?
1,500.
15.
All right.
And then I would encourage anyone who wants to know more about any of these organizations to either consult the organizations for sure, because I know for the boards that I'm on, we're really anxious to make sure that Jackson knows that all these services are available to our community. Certainly, I'm on the Gibson Center board, and one of the things that came up in our survey this year was that we need more senior services. So we're going to be getting a lot of information and education in the community about what Gibson offers and can offer to Jackson. But if you want to know anything about any of these organizations, please don't hesitate to call them or get the information that they submitted to the town.
All right, so
So
we've
now,
got everything we need there, so we'll just make a motion. I'll make a motion that we accept all these changes and amounts that we have for the recurring social services. Will you second
for
it?
a total of $23,782, and
Right.
I will second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, readoption of the optional veterans credit, readoption of the all veterans credit, Carroll County Communication District zoning ordinance, So fire department maintenance, $50,000. Readoption for vet credits required, could you?
So the
explain this
the
thing?
$50,000 for the fire department is taking the reduction in the line item of the operating budget, putting it as a
Right.
new expendable trust fund.
Yeah, right.
And the others are new articles that do not cost the town anything, but they are warrant articles that have to be listed here.
Those are kind of just an FYI.
Right.
They'll be fully worded warrant articles
Right.
in the town report.
So,
I'll make a motion to accept the new warrant articles at a total of $50,000.
you want a second? John?
I will second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right.
That additional one is gone.
Yeah, so that, so we go right to the previous year. 720,000 budgeted.
That's just information.
Right. And, yeah, no, we have to, there's nothing to say in that, okay? It speaks for itself. And so if you look, get to the bottom, no, previous year, fire truck, okay. Town warrant articles, all told, you can see what the prices are, some of the, why it's down, some is that there's not money that we're looking for the bridge, right? There are other things. So, anybody want to make a motion on this?
Do we make a motion to accept the total? We don't need to because we did each.
We don't, okay.
Okay.
All right, good.
So,
So that's where we're at, kids. That's all our warrant articles. We'll come to the end. Do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the facilities committee,
Mhm.
what happens to all that money that wasn't spent?
Back in the general
It
fund.
just goes back.
It just
Yep.
goes back in the general
Yep.
fund?
Yep.
How much money is in the general fund?
It's on the last page
Yeah.
of your folder there,
There?
On the
Back
back,
right
on the
there.
back page of that.
last
Yes.
column on the right. This one right here with the pie graphs.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
sorry, yeah. So it is $1,001,000.
Just over $1 million.
$1,001,438.
Have you had any discussions between the three of you as to what, and if you're gonna potentially use some of that unreserved fund balance to
Last
offset?
page.
Oh, yeah.
You have that? Okay, just curious.
By the time we get to October, we'll know, but we have enough and we can use it in such a way that will, as Jerry likes to put it, stabilize
Stabilize.
the budget, It lowers it in one place, but stabilizes overall, and I think if you look at the years of our budgets, my God, it's pretty incredible how we've been able to keep this very stable.
If you look at the last page though, that's the tax rate comparison we're going to use.
Yeah, you'll see it in the town.
Again, we have decided to use there with the suggested ranges there.
Okay. Oh, Sarah.
Yes, I'd just like to ask the question if the selectmen would consider going back to our 2018-2019 format of where we put in the town employees, their wage, their statutory benefits, and their total cost. The school does that and has done that forever. And for what apparent reason, I never did hear at any of the budget meetings why that was taken out of our book for the last 2 years. And I would like to know if you would consider putting it back in so we do have a handle on how that's done.
We did it a couple of years ago, we stopped doing it.
It was a decision that we had discussed based on information that you can absolutely ask for and get from the town office, but we didn't feel it added value in the town book and didn't have a lot of attention paid to it when it was there or taken out. So we will consider it though.
I just questioned it because it is in a yearly basis, it is in our school warrants every year. And I just feel that it gives a person or a taxpayer, and if you're not a taxpayer, it also helps describe how your tax dollars are going, which out-of-towners who pay quite a substantial amount of our taxes and ask those
Right.
questions.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Okay. Any other questions? Well, I'll make a motion that we adjourn this second public hearing of the budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
all of your
Good
work
discussion.
and thanks for the participation,
Early.
everyone.